Morning, Rabbi. Mazel tov.
Thank,
Mazel tov.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. It was a very nice simcha because, I mean, every simcha is nice, but there's a special that the chassan, the Kala is my niece, Ruvi's daughter, but the chassan is from Sydney, Australia, so it's an Australian connection. And the father of the chassan, Rabbi Doctor, became Aryeh Leib Solomon, a legendary figure in my youth. He's a couple of years older than me. I remember when he came to yeshiva to Melbourne from Sydney. I met stories about him, not for now, for Fabrengen.
Yes.
He wrote, by the way, at the Rebbe's encouragement, he went back to university and he wrote a book. His thesis, his PhD, is on the Rebbe's shita, the Rebbe's whole position and view on education, a book this thick, an incredible book. And he became subsequently also the rabbi of one of the largest schools in the Southern Hemisphere, Jewish schools, Mount Moriah, the rabbi there, the school, and he tells his story how he became this god of. So this I can share with you. I mean, he comes from a traditional home, but not from home. He was in public school. And the first shluchim that the Rebbe sent Bochum, shluchim, amongst them was, as you know, Zalman's father, Allah Shalom, and amongst them was Rabbi Minkovich, the prince of Besivka. I was 10 years old when they came to Australia, and they affected the revolution beyond revolution. So he tells the story that Yossel Minkovich came to Sydney and they spoke in the schools, and he was a kid, a teenager, and he sees this young guy. He's dressed like a chassid, never speaks fluent English and American, and he's speaking passionately about whatever he was talking about, and he so fired his imagination that he said he has to find out more, and that's what happened. To him, rabbis were old, crusty people, either of liberal reform or if they're Orthodox, they're from a previous generation, previous world he didn't relate to. He was a young man with a beard and a black hat. And how he said and what he said, again, it so ignited his soul that began his journey. And he became Aryeh Leib Solomon, doctor, became a doctor, a rabbi, smicha. All of his children, Baruch Hashem, beautiful children. So it was a very big simcha. A real, it's a real simcha. We saw the Rebbe's, Mamash, the Rebbe's children. Him and us too, directly. Okay.
Did you officiate, Rabbi?
No, Ravi did. Ravi did. Actually, I officiated at his previous daughter's wedding, but this one he did. He's the father, he's the rabbi. Yeah, this is appropriate. Yeah, beautiful chasana in Boca. Okay, so today, like this, friend. So I sent you a text before we look at the text. So this week's parsha, much civil law is all in this week's parsha. Hundreds, thousands of halachas and tractates, Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basa, and many other mesechtas too, are all based on the verses in this week's parsha. Jurisprudence and the conflict and that laws of damages, so sales, torts, guardians, custodians, all kinds of things. So one of the halachas, let's look at the Rambam. I sent you the Rambam. Let's look at the halach. Friday. Let's read it together. Read it in the English. A person, it's all based on the parsha this week. That's why we're learning this now. A person can transfer ownership over a property itself with regard to the produce it yields. So it means like this. The halacha is halacha that ein adam makne dovar shaloi ba le'olam. You cannot sell something that doesn't exist. In other words, you cannot tell someone, you see this tree? The future fruits that it bears, I'm going to sell to you. It's not a sale. You're not bound. There's no sale. There's another consideration. You made a promise, so you should carry out your promise, but that's a different consideration. It's nothing. It's not. That's a separate obligation, and different laws apply to it. But there is no sale. There's no sale because it doesn't exist. You can't sell something that I will, or your person will say, "I'm going to sell you. I'm going to sell to you all the fish I'm going to catch today." It's a verbal. It's a commitment, but it's not a sale because you don't have the fish. Okay, so you cannot sell something that doesn't exist. It has to exist in the present, and then the sale is a bona fide sale, and you're obligated to then sell it, and the money that's agreed upon has to be accepted, etc. However, a person can, now let's read Allah again. A person can transfer ownership over a property itself with regard to the produce it yields. I'll explain what that means. This applies with regard to a sale, with regard to a present, or with regard to an oral will. What is he saying? Let's talk about the fruit of a tree, for example. He says, this tree, you see this tree? This tree has right now, it's a fact, right now, the capacity to produce fruit. I'm selling you that. That exists. And then the fruits that it produces are yours. So, in the words of the Rambam again, you can transfer ownership over a property itself with regard to the produce it yields. I'm selling you a part of the tree, the ability of the tree to produce fruit. So that's right now, present and a reality. That's a bona fide sale. The fruits therefore belong now to the seller and applies also to a gift or an oral will. And then I've explained, this is not considered to be transferring ownership of an entity that does not yet come into existence. You might say, but there's no fruit yet. How can you sell it? Answer is, for the article itself exists, the tree does exist. And the person is transferring ownership over its produce. So since the article exists, because he's giving the capacity to produce the produce, and that's a present reality, it's there in the tree. So therefore, it's a bona fide sale. He continues to, what can the matter be compared to a person who rents a house or a field to a colleague? So the rental doesn't exist. So how could you make such a financial obligation? Answer, it does. Here's the house, and the house can be lived in. So I'm not selling you the house. I'm selling you the livable component of the house, but not the house itself. As the Rambam says, to a person who rents a house or a field to a colleague, in which instance did not transfer ownership over the property in its entirety, but merely the right to derive benefit. This is a livable place right now. Look at it, it's there. I'm giving you the livability of the house, not the house itself. The house's livability I'm giving you. So like I'm selling, it's like renting or selling 1% of it, 10, whatever the percentage is, of the property right now. So in the tree, likewise, there is a part of it that produces fruit. That is what I'm giving or sending or giving as a gift or selling you. That's permissible. Are we clear? So you cannot transfer ownership over something that does not exist per se, but if you're giving something that does exist and it will produce, it naturally produces, the house can have people in it. So it's the renting, the livable component of the house that I'm renting to you or selling you. That is permissible. Not impermissible, that's a bona fide sale. Okay? Are we clear? So that's the legality of it. Now, everything, this is the beauty of Chassidus, as you all know, that everything in Torah, every halacha, has a spiritual dimension. And in fact, the spiritual dimension is what comes first, and the legal and physical dimension evolves from the spiritual dimension. So, case in point, what's the spiritual dimension here of this halacha? What is it saying? And it's a very powerful message, as we'll hear. Let's begin. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya introduces the following novel teaching that has changed everything for everyone. And that's the Beinoni, the notion of the Beinoni. which means the intermediate man. Now, till the Alter Rebbe was understood like this, that the tzaddik is completely righteous, that the wicked is wicked. And then there's the Beinoni guy in between who does mitzvahs, but also does sins, kind of the in-between fellow. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya says, no. The in-between level is a level that everyone can achieve, and it is not the sinner. So what's the difference? The Rebbe explains like this. The tzaddik is someone who has transformed his inner drives. The wicked obviously has not. I mean, his wicked, selfish, sinful drives. The wicked obviously is not transformed. It reacts upon his evil inclination, his animal soul, his selfish instinct. The Beinoni, here's the Beinoni. The Beinoni shares in common, he's just like the wicked person. He's just like the wicked person. He desires all the sins of the world, but he has learned, and looks trying to address why briefly now, a degree of absolute self-mastery. Let's unpack this. So the tzaddik is someone who is affected, and this is a gift. The vast majority of people will never reach the level of tzaddik, are not meant to. The tzaddik doesn't struggle anymore. He's actually transformed his whole inner persona. Let's illustrate this. You get slapped. Now, someone walks over to you in shul and just goes whack across the face, or insults you, whatever it is. So there's three reactions. There's, of course, the normal reaction, the conventional reaction of the Rasha. You smack him back, like, what the? And you hit him back now. If not now, you'll take revenge and do it tomorrow. Whatever. You'll find a way. That's one extreme. You simply respond back, you take revenge. He insults you publicly, whatever it is, you take revenge. Let's go to the other extreme, the tzaddik. The tzaddik, not only doesn't he take revenge, but his whole reaction is compassion and achmanis immediately. He's not personally insulted, not personally affected. He understands, he has empathy why this person did it, his upbringing, his background, he had a fight with his wife. And moreover, he says to himself, this was divine providence and I needed to have this. And he's thankful. He's thankful that it happened. And this is an immediate reaction. And he wasn't born with this selflessness. He worked very hard at tzaddik, and that's a separate discussion, how he transformed his very inner drives. But again, it's not the purview, it's not the mission of the vast majority of us. We'll never get there, although we need to strive for it. See, the tzaddik acts with, and he gives him a hug back. Sincerely. That's the tzaddik. What's the Beinoni? The Beinoni is he's going to act like the tzaddik, but he is overcoming an initial response like the wicked, which means the expected response. Now, I'll soon tell you how he achieves that, but let's go a little bit further and unpack what we're saying. Now, the tzaddik, you tell me, now the tzaddik, because he doesn't have a Yetzirah, he's transformed it. He's literally transformed his evil inclination. There's many levels of tzaddik. Either evil inclination is dormant and completely surrendered like a knockout punch in the ring, and he's down for the count forever. Or he actually transformed, he's your ally. It's a higher level of tzaddik. In either case, a tzaddik, you can count on him, my dear friends. Tomorrow you know he's going to be a tzaddik too. Because he doesn't struggle anymore. He's transcended the struggle. Now the Beinoni, the middle level, who acts like, here's the point, he acts like the tzaddik, but feels like the wicked. It's a constant struggle. So just because right now I resist a temptation, whatever the case may be, whether it was someone slapped me or something very tempting that came my way, and I resisted it, is there a guarantee I'm going to resist tomorrow? You wouldn't bet on such a person because it's a big struggle. Now you won, tomorrow you could lose. That's the spiritual meaning of you can't sell something, you can't count on something that doesn't yet exist. Spiritually, it means it's referring to the Beinoni, the tzaddik, yes. But the Beinoni, which is the goal of all of us, is to reach the level of behavioral control. Behave like a Jew. If you don't feel like one, you don't feel godly, you don't feel humble, you don't feel God, but behave in a way that you do. Such a person, what you produce, you do the mitzvah, it's in the bank. Can we count on you that you're going to do the mitzvah tomorrow? No. Maybe you're going to succumb to it because you're constantly fighting. That's the spiritual meaning of you cannot sell, cannot acquire. We're God's acquisition. God is the master, and we're his acquisition. The tzaddik is completely an acquisition of God. You can count on him today, tomorrow. You're safe. It's a safe bet. It's a certain bet because he's given over himself to God. The Beinoni didn't give himself over. He's still fighting with his own desires and every human vice. His behavior he's managed to master, but it's a struggle. And no guarantee that they're going to win the next battle. I hope so. So that's the meaning of my behavior is not God's acquisition. It's when I produce it, it's his. And what's going to be tomorrow, there's no guarantee. That's not an acquisition. My tomorrow's behavior isn't God's unless I actually produce it. The tzaddik we can guarantee. But here's the exception. Here's the Beinoni. There is a way. There is a way to be God's, even behaviorally, and that is, let's understand what this means. When you sell the tree, you're not selling the tree, you're selling the fruits, but what you're selling, what's present now with the tree's ability to produce the fruit, that's what you're selling or giving as a gift, and it's a bona fide sale, because that exists right now. What does that mean spiritually? And this is the whole point of Tanya, friends. The whole point of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says like this about the Beinoni, this intermediate level who struggles. He says, when a person reaches this level, and I'm going to describe it in a minute, you can count on him that he won't sin in the future, and the way he is now, put him in the temptations he faced in the past, he will resist it. He never sinned in the past either. He obviously did, because you're not born a Beinoni. Even the tzaddik is not born a Beinoni. He goes through all the stages. So what does that ever mean when he says that the Beinoni, he never sinned and never will sin? It means, I'm going to explain now, that the conviction, that's the key word I'm going to convey now, that the Beinoni has is such that no matter what situation you put in the future, you can count on this guy and put him in the situations in the past that he failed, he won't anymore now. Now, that's the point of Tanya. How do we get that conviction? That's like the tree's ability to produce the fruit, even though the fruit will be produced over time, but the ability is here and it's real. The whole point of Tanya is to cultivate within a person the conviction in the mind that the whole Chabad Hasidus, Chabad stands for Chacham B'Das, is that the mind rules the heart. And if the mind has attained a level of conviction, then it will control the heart, even though the heart still desires what it desires. Simple example is a smoker. He's addicted. He's addicted. He's a smoker. And then he goes to the doctor and he goes through a series of x-rays and he sees his lungs. And he understands what he's doing. He sees it in his lungs. So now because he understands what happens when he takes the next cigarette, then even though physiologically he still desires it, he's going to put it down. Because he has attained the conviction, this is killing me, and he understands that, and he's not going to do it. Because he's a normal person. So his feeling, his desire for the cigarette didn't change, but what changed is here. The conviction. And what changed the conviction is really understood it. And it was shown a picture, not of somebody else's lungs, his lungs. Not what happens to a smoker. This is what your lungs look like. So, well, you can count on this guy, he's not going to take a cigarette. So what does this mean spiritually? Alter Rebbe is in Tanya giving us, we're already at 7 o'clock, I mean, this is a whole study, but I'm just going to tell you the outline of it, and then we have to learn Tanya to arrive at it. If a person would understand that every sin is actually denying God, worshiping idols, betraying God, insulting God in the deepest way, betraying our Judaism, betraying our identity, betraying our history, betraying our forefathers, we wouldn't do it. If we understood the stakes, If we understood that my little life, nobody sees, nobody sees. When I cross that line, what I have done, no matter how much I want, no matter how tempting this is, to say, to do, whatever it is, I won't cross the line because I've attained the conviction. And that's what the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, which we're not going to explain now, but is giving us chapter after chapter, methodically understanding. You would not want to betray your people and God. You would not bow down to the idol. You'd give up your life as Jews did over the millennia. Even if you want righteous, spiritually and inspired, that's a line you're not going to cross. You're not going to deny your people, your God, your history. You would not deny that you're a Jew. The average Jew will not do that, remember? The average Jew won't. So no, says the Alter Rebbe, every sin is, that's what it is. Gewalt, gewalt. It's not just a minor infraction. So I'm not the biggest tzaddik, a little imperfection here and there. No, nicht gefährlich. Life goes on. I'm still a good guy. It's a mistake. You are a good guy, that's true, but that sin is a total betrayal. And it's everything I just said before. I'm talking to myself. But the point is that you can't just say that, okay, now I'm convinced. You have to understand why. Why is a simple transgression idolatry and a denial and an insult to our history and our people and God Himself? God Himself denies God, Hashem Echad. It denies that God is the absolute reality in God. That's what it does. So if I understand that, I have the conviction, you can count on this guy. That's the meaning of you sell the fruit, the tree, for the ability to produce fruit. The tree itself, meaning my feelings, they're not holy. But the fruit, my behavior, that's real. The conviction in me is real. What we're finished. The conviction is real. My desire for sin is also real. I've held a healthy Yetzer Hara and all the temptations of the world, they speak to me like everybody else, and I'm pulled for it. I'm pulled. I want to get angry, lust, desire, everything. That's the most of the tree, but there's one little thing right in here. That's the tree's ability to produce the fruit. What I do have is I've achieved the conviction. That person, that conviction is real, and you can count on this guy tomorrow and the next day. The future fruits are sold now. I'm God's now, in not just in this moment, but my future I've given to God. I've given my future to God. Why? Because of the conviction I have now. And that line I will not cross. No matter how much the heart is inflamed like a fiery furnace in desire for the pleasures of the temptations of the world. Why? Because I have cultivated the conviction that's identifying in the tree, you can produce the fruit. That's what you're selling. The fruit is sold. Done. You can count on me. I'm yours. Tomorrow, today, and my past, where I failed you, if you put me back there, you count on me then too. That's what the Alter Rebbe says about the Beinoni. That's the spiritual meaning of this law. So when the law says you cannot sell the future fruit, that's talking about the wicked who sometimes sins, sometimes doesn't, and no guarantee tomorrow what's going to be. But the Beinoni is identified within himself the intellectual conviction and cultivated it and inspired it. That's real. And that's a person that you can rely on his future. He's an acquisition of God totally, not just in the present moment, but tomorrow too. I give God my tomorrow, my whole life, and then he plays it out and causes the fruit is produced, the delicious fruit, the mitzvahs that are served and given and give life and pleasure to Hashem and to the world. But I'm yours now. That's what we want. This is the whole parsha begins, Mishpatim. We're going to finish now, that we're Hashem's servants. There's different levels of servants. It's not just my work is yours. I am yours. For sure, the tzaddik is, I am yours. But even the Beinoni, all of us can reach that level in essence, because I give you my conviction, even though I'm still tempted. But no, I can't cross and won't cross that line. A wonderful Shabbos. And
Good Shabbos and Mazel Tov.
thank you, Psudas Toivus.
Shabbos Shkoyach.
Shabbos. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos, Mazel Tov. Of
Thank you all
Simchas.
for beautiful. Amen.
Amen.